All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for today's exciting webinar on fun strategies for implementing Sanford Harmony into your pre-K, TK, and K classrooms. Angela, let's go ahead and change the next slide. Thank you. So my name is Rachel Escobedo. I'm the online ambassador for Sanford Programs. I'm going to be your moderator today. Just a couple of ground rules. This session is being recorded, so you will get a copy of it later. You will also get a copy of the handout that's included with this webinar. Your handout is also included on your control panel. So if you can find your GoToWebinar control panel, there should be a little section that says handouts, and you can download it directly from there. If you don't see it for whatever reason, don't worry, you will get it afterwards. Sometimes your control panel is also hidden behind browsers or any other pages that might be open. So make sure to minimize some browsers and you should be able to find it. Okay, so we're going to go right ahead and introduce Angela Karem. She is our speaker today and she is amazing. We are so excited to have her here with us today. So a little bit about Angela. Angela Karem has a master's in curriculum and instruction and is currently a transitional kindergarten teacher in the Chula Vista Elementary School District. Prior to teaching in the public school system, she ran the preschool for the arts and enriched the lives of many for nearly 20 years, teaching the art of dance. She is the proud mother of 3 extraordinary sons currently pursuing their passions in higher education. Featured in local news because of her innovative and engaging curriculum with an emphasis on social emotional impact, Angela is currently dedicated to positively affecting the world one child and one classroom at a time. All right. Welcome, Angela.
Well, good morning. I am so excited to be here with you, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and giving me a chance to share my passion with Harmony. I really wish I could see all your faces, but since I can't, let's take a poll and so I can find out a little bit about you. So I would like to see what your role is in education. You just heard a little bit about me. So are you a preschool teacher? Are you a TK teacher? Are you a kinder teacher or something different? Maybe a school counselor? So if you don't mind taking a moment just to give me a snapshot of who I get to spend this wonderful morning with, that would be great.
Thank you, Angela. You should have noticed a poll launch right on your screen, so you can select your answer from there. And again, a reminder, if you are other, please submit your answer via chat and we will take a look. We'll give everybody maybe 30 seconds to get their answers in.
Okay. Let me just remind you that no matter what your role is, you're obviously passionate about early childhood education like me, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So you're the reason I'm here. I'm excited to be working with early childhood, and like I said, that's the reason you're here too. So I'm excited to share all these cool strategies with you that you can start implementing in your classroom.
Thank you, Angela. All right, let's get everyone. I see some responses are still coming in. I'm going to give you all 10 more seconds. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your responses. We're going to close the poll and launch the results. Angela will read the results out loud, and I will comment on some of the responses we're getting in the chat.
Okay. All right, so your role, 22% of you are preschool teachers. Perfect. Only 2% TK, but as you probably already know, preschool and TK, we are working with about the same age group kids. And then K, about 18%. Great, so this is directly going to impact your classrooms, preschool, TK, and K. And then other, Rachel, what have we got for other?
So we have a lot, I'm going to try to summarize because we have a lot of responses, but we have a lot of counselors, a lot of elementary counselors, let's see, professors actually joining us today. Let's see, we have some ambassadors from the Harmony program. Hello, shout out to our team. Let's see, we have a behavior coach. I'll read hers out loud because she looks like she wrote in a particular answer. I'm a behavior coach at elementary school. I've been working with grades 7 through 12 for the past 10 years. This is my first year working with early childhood students, other than my experience as a mom. Nice. Glad you're here with
I
us.
am so thrilled to have you. This is the perfect spot. Early childhood education is one of these enigma times in a human's life. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to all of you. I'm super excited we have a lot of counselors too,
Mm-hmm.
because these, like I said about the early childhood education, this is the trajectory. Like, where are we launching those kids? Here is the starting point. So this positive, proactive way of managing your class, interacting with your class, and building those relationships is really key. So I'm so excited to have that 58% of other, because you guys are going to be making the difference in the more community realm. And then, of course, I'll be speaking to the TKK and preschool teachers in their classroom. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we had some administrators as well, and then I'm going to let you move on.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, the admin is very important too. We need your buy-in, admin. So I'm hoping you can give you a snapshot of how important our work is in our early childhood education classroom. All right, today what you're going to learn, what you're going to take away is I'm going to talk about incorporating the Z storybooks with lessons and activities. So for instance, I have a quick tip about an alternate to read aloud that I'm going to share with you. Tips for managing meetups and buddy ups. I'm going to give you some easy systems, and then also some kind of time frames to help you kind of visualize where you're going to put it in your day. I'm also going to talk about the building of the home-school connection, and how there's really two quick, easy ways to build that connection. And then having fun with harmony, music, and movement. You're going to see me incorporate it actually in the storybooks and lessons and activities, and then we'll sum it up at the end about the value of having that music and movement in your classroom. So incorporating these storybooks and lessons and activities. So this is the meat of Harmony's lessons and activities, because there's two parts. There's your meetup and buddy up. Those are your everyday practices. And then there's your lessons and activities. This is your curriculum. So I'm going to talk about the curriculum right now and incorporating the Z storybooks into those lessons and activities. So what I've done is I have created an easy little place to kind of reflect on the 5 units as a whole. So I've provided you a handout, and it lists all the character names of the storybooks. It has the vocabulary to use in all of the stories that is used in all of the stories and the lessons and activities. And then I've also listed all the lessons and activities in one easy place. There are 22 of them. So you can kind of, again, visualize how that will look as you're mapping it out. So my goal is for you to kind of see how easy and fun it is to incorporate, and let me mention fun, right? It is easy to incorporate harmony into your classroom, and I wanted to provide you with something that you can actually use in your classroom like today or tomorrow when you're creating your lesson plans, when you're mapping things out. Rachel, did you want to talk about where to find that handout?
Yes, thank you, Angela. So just a reminder that handout can be found on your control panel. Directly from there, you can download it. But again, if you can't find it, no worries, you will receive a copy of it afterwards.
Awesome. Okay. So the Z storybooks. So that they come in the teacher toolkit and also on the professional learning library, which, by the way, is a wonderful place to download the pictures and content. So there are 3 things about the storybooks that I think that you should notice are different than most storybooks. So on the inside of your storybooks, you have different colored fonts. You have the blue teacher font, which is, I call it the teacher talk because, and here's a storybook here, because it gives you prompting questions before the story. It helps you give the stage ready for what you're about to read. And it kind of gives you, as the teacher, an overview of what you're going to be doing with your kids. So this is kind of your teacher talk, and it's right there in the storybook. And then in the black font is the actual story. So they're differentiated and easy to use. The teacher talk in blue, the black is the actual story you read. And again, they're really easy to use because it's right on the back of the pictures. The other really cool thing about the storybooks is you also have a connection to the classroom at the end of every story, and that's this big green page. And what's so cool about that is you can use it for everyday moments, and you can also use it for some of the discussions and activity. This is the verbiage you can use right away after you've read the story. And that's after every unit that, that is in the storybooks. So you have the teacher talk, the story, and the connections to the classroom, all in one easy place. So what I thought was important about meeting the characters is that when you can front load those characters, you can engage your students a little more. And then you can also talk about them as they pop up in the stories, because the stories happen with one or two of the characters at a time. So if you already know all the characters, it's kind of like already knowing your students, then you can just fluidly talk about them. And here's why I thought also that was really important. I want you to notice Jordan. So Jordan has a connection with somebody in my classroom this year, Sunny, except that Sunny has hearing aids that are pink. And what's cool is when I introduced the characters to my kids before we even did any of the stories, my whole class made that connection. And already Sunny felt at ease because immediately her whole class kind of got it, understood, and saw that it's okay. She has got a hearing aid and that's okay. So having the kids meet the characters beforehand can help in those ways. And then also on that handout, here is the front-loaded vocabulary, and it's color-coded by units. And why that's helpful is as you're mapping out your year, you need to front load a lot of the vocabulary for academic units and for, and all the genres for your math and for your sciences. But you also need to do it for your social emotional curriculum. For instance, commonality. What does it mean to have something in common? So once you have this list in front of you and you're planning in your plan book, you can just jot down the things that you need to front load for your harmony units, and then sprinkle them through your day or sprinkle them through your week, or you've got them fresh in your mind. So I wanted to give you just a quick, easy place to have that vocabulary so you can use it when you're planning. And let's talk about the units now. So there are 5 units. The first unit is diversity and inclusion. And I already told you a little bit about what makes those storybooks unique. But what else is cool is the storybooks, each story in the storybooks coincides directly with the lessons and activities. They are absolutely connected. So for instance, the very first story, Meet Z, which is this story, you can do directly after the lesson and activity 1.1, Share Your Square, and they're connected. Then the same thing with the second story, Finding Things in Common. It directly correlates to How We Are the Same, Treasure Hunt. I call it a treasure hunt in my classroom. So I've put this in one easy place so you can see how they match up. And also, I've thrown into each unit for you what songs go best with the units. So for instance, the very first story you're going to read to your class is Meet Z. So that's a great time to introduce the song Z Time. It goes, Z time, it's time to learn with Z. So that's a great way to kind of introduce a story you're about to do with your class. And then you can kind of keep that going through the year if you'd like. Every time you're going to read a story about Z, you can put that song on, and the kids kind of make that connection that they're about to learn a little bit more about Z or about what they can teach Z. So Unit 2 is the same. All the units, again, they correlate directly with a storybook and then the lessons and activities. What I really like about Unit 2, even though it's the meatiest and the biggest, it really gives you those kinds of qualities that are going to help kids regulate their emotions and kind of recognize their feelings. And at this age group, it's so developmentally appropriate. And then you're not just doing that for each individual kiddo in these lessons, you're also kind of doing it as a whole in a community, which also helps build those bridges of positive relationships And the lens of empathy in this unit is fantastic. I can't say enough about how even though, like I said, it's really meaty, there's 7 lessons and 7 stories, they really work so well together. They build upon each other wonderfully and end with something that's often not talked about in early childhood education, and that's growing, learning, and changing, and how that's okay, and that's actually very much a part of what we do. And then the song that goes with that is, you can be anything in our class, you can be anything, which is a great one to go with some of those storybooks too, and utilize, again, like kind of as you're doing your lessons and activities, or to wrap up with a transition. If you're closing up your lesson and activity, you can play that song. So for Unit 3, this one is all about communication, which, as you know, is paramount for things like collaboration and partner work. So the things that we're learning, or you're teaching your students, being a good listener, how to do the back and forth exchange, how words are so important. This unit is fantastic for kind of teaching the fluidity of that partner work when you're doing academic work. This actually just sets the stage perfectly for when you are doing those units of where they have to actually collaborate in academics. And it's actually timed out really well in the year too, to kind of aid in your academics in the classroom when it comes to being able to communicate with each other, with your students. And then this one is a great song, and you can actually do this one with buddy ups starting the year. It's called Be a Good Listener, and it goes, be a good listener to everyone you meet. So what I like about the songs too is that they actually have really important words in there, really important lessons within themselves. And I'll talk about that more as we talk about that music, but that song is perfect for this unit. But again, it's also good to use like with the buddy ups and meetups, and we'll talk about more of that in a minute. And Unit 4 is problem solving. Another really important one socially and then also academically, because you're teaching these students how to solve their own problems, and then also how to kind of solve problems as a unit, as a team. You're really building those team player skills and getting that buy-in from the whole class, because you're doing these lessons and activities together. That really helps build that teamwork. So you're talking about feelings, you're talking about how to decide together, how to be a team, and then how to regulate yourself within that team, which is the Z gets the ziggles, turn up the ziggles, turn down the ziggles. So these units are really thorough in the way they're really unpacking each of these units. And as an educator, you know how important it is to give the onus of problem solving to the students. That helps with behavior management, and it helps with you making your academic lessons seamless. Now, the song that goes with this is Buddy Go Around, but again, this is another one that you can use with buddy ups throughout your year. So Unit 5 is Peer Relations, and this is a really fun, light one. And I'm bringing up this song on this slide right away because this song says, when you come to school, have a good day. So this is actually a song that you can start every day with too, but definitely to use during peer relations in Unit 5, because this unit is a really fun unit. It's talking about brightening someone's day, and you'll actually see one of these lessons in my classroom in a little bit later, about how to include everyone, and something really valuable, how to stay friends. How to use that friendship fix-it shop to amend something that's not going well. And as you know, that's one of the biggest fires in early childhood education when it comes to friendships. Fixing those friendships that all of a sudden dissipate even though they were just created. And so these units are really great tools to give these kids to fix these problems themselves. For instance, like I said, the friendship fix-it shop. So those are the 5 units, kind of in a nutshell. And like I said, I put them there for you to use so you can see the stories and lessons and activities and how they're correlated. But I wanted to also show you something that you can try in your classroom that's different and unique. So this is called storyboarding. And if you're familiar with GLAD or input charts, is basically what this is. So all you do is you photocopy, or better, download the pictures and words from the professional learning library. And if not, the storybooks are so super easy to use to do that. And then as you're telling the story, because the words are on the back of the picture, so you can be showing the picture, which you see me doing there with Z, you're inputting it into the chart. So it's an easy reflection and engagement with the kids. You've got full buy-in because you've got these pictures that are moving, being placed up there. You've got the sequencing. And here's the coolest part. Then when you're done with the story, you put it into your classroom library, or you put it somewhere in your classroom where your students can actually interact with it. So just again, to recap, what is storyboarding? Storyboarding is a different way to interact with us, the read aloud stories. You just reproduce the pictures, put the words on the back. And the most important thing is, once it's created, then it's kid-friendly and user-friendly. And also on that side note, these are sturdy storybooks. So put these where the kids can put their hands on them too. They're not teacher books, they're classroom books, okay? So let's move on to tips to manage meeting up and buddy up. So here is the Meetup and Buddy Up Bible. It's not really a Bible, but you will use it religiously the first few weeks of your classroom when you're doing your meetups and your buddy ups, but then you won't really need it so much. So don't put it away too far away though, because you could use it maybe for a substitute, or if you have a student teacher later in the year, you can show them the in and outs of a meetup and a buddy up, because it's really summarized well in that book. So here are a couple pictures of a buddy up activity, two different buddy up activities in my classroom. Actually, it's the same, sorry. This buddy up activity is called Mirror Mirror, and it's a quick buddy up activity. And the reason why I wanted to show you these pictures is because I wanted to remind you that as you're incorporating buddy ups into your classrooms, they can be kind of messy, okay? Just like anything, it takes a little practice. So the kids are gonna they're gonna need a little practice at it. You're, as a teacher, gonna need a little practice at it. So give yourself a little patience and grace. Yes, they may stick their tongue out at each other. You know, you kind of bend and flex and mold as you're moving forward. But like anything, like I said, with practice, your kids and yourself will get good at buddying up. So buddy ups are gonna be done daily if you can. So I am providing you here a little system that I use for my buddy ups. And it's a little grid where I have all of my students' names down one side, okay? And then I have all of their names again along the bottom. Now, the bottom one is abbreviated because you need room for all your students. For instance, this year I have 4 more students than I did on that grid. Here's my current grid this year, and you can see all my students' names on this side and then an abbreviated version along the bottom. And then I just put a dot when my kids are buddies. So for instance, the very first time maybe Anna and Max are buddies, you just go along the row for Anna and go up the column for Max, and you make a dot. And then once your entire grid is full, you know that you have given your kids a chance to meet up with every single student in your classroom. Now, a quick note about this grid. I want you to notice that my columns and my rows are not symmetrical, or at least the columns are not. Don't drive yourself crazy. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, which is why I just abbreviated in the bottom and I didn't worry about the sizes of the columns, because you know you want to make this as user-friendly for yourself as possible. Okay, so here is a picture of how I show the kids their buddies, and there's a multitude of ways. You're the master of your own ship. You know what works best for you. Sometimes you can use magnets, bracelets, anything you'd like, but I wanted to show you mine because again, I wanted you to see some of them are their classroom pictures, some of them are pictures I've taken. It doesn't need to be perfect. The kids just need to see who their buddy is. So just be forgiving with yourself with those things. So now I wanted to show you a buddy up clip. So what I showed you before were pictures of a buddy up activity in my classroom. And the buddy up activity in my classroom was a short one. So what I'm about to do is show you a longer buddy up activities, because buddy up activities can be like 5-10 minutes or less, or they can be like a real lesson or activity, and they can be a little longer. So for instance, this one took me about 20 to 25 minutes to complete.
Thank you, Angela. All right, let's take a look at the clip.
Okay, so what you see here is me actually teaching them what they're going to do with their buddies. So I'm teaching it just like I would do a lesson. I've got engagement. I pull the student over to model what they'll be actually doing with their buddy. Then I release them to go work alongside their buddy. And notice I've preset everything out because I really want their focus just to be on working with their buddy, not having to get materials. That way they can really practice the turn taking. So now what they're doing here is they're doing an activity where they are having to take turns. So one buddy gets a chance to decorate one of the sun rays, pick the color, pick the sticker, choose what they're going to use. Then they give it to the other buddy, and then the other buddy does the next sun ray. So they can work together and collaborate and say, I'm going to do stripes on this one, you can do stickers on that one, or they can do each individual depending on, you know, how those buddies work together, because every pair is going to be unique, just like every human is going to be unique. So then what's cool about this at the end is then they're going to take what they've made, what they've produced in this collaboration activity, buddy up activity, and then they're going to put it on our classroom poster. So that was our buddy up activity in my classroom.
Thank you, Angela. Back to you.
Okay. So on to a meetup. So the parts of a meetup that are unique to the harmony are the goals, so that you're creating your harmony goals, and then the 4 components of a meetup. So the very first meetup you do, you're going to create your harmony goals. And here are the harmony goals from my classroom from last year. This year I actually only have 3 because it works just better for me in my TK classroom to have less. But we created these together. However, I kind of already knew in my mind what we were going to be working on, so I kind of prompted all of these from the kiddos, and but then we, you know, created them together. So here are the 4 components of a meetup. So I want you to notice that the greeting and the quick connection at the end are those 2 parts of the meetup are the quick fun parts. Okay, in the middle is the meaty part, the sharing and response and the community check-in. These 2 components are what makes harmony meetups unique and amazing. Okay, so let me talk about them just really quick briefly. The greeting is literally just everybody greets each other around the circle. Now, I have a handshake there because in early childhood education, I really feel that the value of skin to skin is important. They're at that age where it's still very meaningful for them to be touched. And it kind of gets those bonds deeper in like a subconscious way. So I ask my students to either give a high five around or shake the hands or a pat on the back. We do something where we're touching, especially in the beginning where we're greeting. And then the share and response is where you're going to pick one student to share. Now, you're going to have all of these steps posted up, and you're also going to have somewhere visible where you can show your class who you're picking, so that they all can see that they're all going to get a fair turn sharing and responding. Okay, because that one kid that shares and responds will be a different kid tomorrow and a different kid tomorrow. I use a little picture of Z that I move in the name chart, but you can do it any way you want. You can write their names on the calendar. You can make your own special grid. You know, again, you're the master of your ship. You decide how you show the class who's sharing every day. But I recommend just one student shares every day. Here's what's cool. You're going to give up the floor to that student. They're going to be in charge of the meeting from that point. So they're going to start by sharing something, and you kind of decide in the beginning, are they sharing something about their weekend? Are they sharing something about themselves personally? I like to start with personal shared because they're brand new at sharing. And then they get to field questions. So then, you know, are there any questions for Samantha about how she likes to play with dinosaurs and dragons? So then we'll field those questions, and then once everybody's kind of spent, everybody's shared everything, that the student that has been chosen has shared everything, all the questions are made, you're going to pull that meeting back in, and you're going to do a community check-in. Now, what's really valuable about this community check-in is you're going to talk about the highs of your goals and the lows. In other words, who saw Ben helping others? I did. I saw Ben helping others the other day. That's one of our harmony goals. So we share in that meeting. You share and celebrate those positives. But the really important things is when a student shares a low. For instance, they say, you know, Max, he wasn't being kind. He took away my race car when I was trying to drive it on my road. And then you can stop everything, turn it over to the students and say, how can we solve this problem? How can we help Max follow our harmony goals? And those students will give the ideas and the strategies, so you have that immediate buy-in from everybody. They're all helping Max solve that problem. They're not calling anybody out. They're just fixing a problem. And why that's cool is it will also show itself in your classroom, because they've helped solve that problem already. So if they see Max being unkind and taking a toy again, they're going to go, oh, what, Max, remember, we said we gave you these strategies to use to try not to do that. So, and it also goes out into the playground too. They start really looking out for each other when they, as a community, solve those problems. And then the last step, the quick connect, like I said, it's a really quick and easy way to finish up your meetup, but it's also fun. So you're just going to pull a quick connect card out of your little box, and I'd like to show you kind of what that looks like in my classroom. So I'm going to show you the beginning parts of a meetup. I'm going to show you a meetup in my classroom, but I don't have the beginning parts shown. What I have is where the person that does the share and response that I've chosen for that day has Z in their hands, because that's what I use as the talking point. So you'll see that student walk over to me, give me back Z, because we've finished the share and response. It doesn't show any of the high and low shares, but you will see a quick connect card. So you'll see how we finish up the meetup in our circle.
Thank you, Angela. Let's take a look at the clip.
So here I am asking my students to get into a meetup circle. They know, we've strategized by now, this is the first one, how to like solve a problem if there's not enough space or too much space. And then you'll see my student Maddie come bring me Z, because she's done doing her share out. What you don't see is our high and lows, but look at how I pull a quick connect card. I just pulled the card for how we're going to finish up our meetup, and it was a pass the smile around, and you can see that positive smile energy being passed through the circle from student to student, and then eventually back to me where we close out, and you can see my buddy ups in the background. So that's a meetup in my classroom. So I hope you enjoyed seeing it actually happen in my classroom. All right, back to our meetups. So I wanted to just share with you, and I know you guys all are familiar, most of you are familiar with early childhood education and how much we circle up. So we've been doing it in community circles, in morning meetings. You have your own name for it in your classroom. We're not asking you to change that. I actually automatically started doing that. But I wanted to remind you that we express ourselves in ways we rarely do otherwise. There's so much research behind circles, and we do them without thinking regularly. But I wanted to just take this slide to remind you to pause and realize what an incredible piece of expression we're giving our students at this point. We don't get up in circles at our jobs and our families. So this is a really high priority activity to do with our early childhood kids. So that's just a quick reminder of that. All right, so building the homeschool connection. I like to think of the homeschool connection as a trifecta, where you have the parents, the teachers, and the students. We all win when we're all on board. And Harmony has two very quick and easy ways to connect to the home. One is the Homeschool Connection newsletter. In every lessons and activities books, and the ones that you can get on the professional learning libraries, you have the Homeschool Connection in the beginning of every unit, for every unit. For instance, this is an actual newsletter that I sent home last year in my classroom, and all I did was I did the usual pertinent information, But then I just cut and paste the Harmony Homeschool Connection for the unit that we were working on that week, discovering commonalities, because they've got some great ideas for parents to use. For instance, it's asking parents to have a conversation with your child regarding family members and how they're similar and how they're different. So it really does kind of branch what we're doing in our classroom into the home, and the parents get to see like the value of what we're doing and what we're doing, and maybe even get some buy-in from them, and Harmony can start rolling over to use in the home. Another way that Harmony can incorporate, that you can incorporate Harmony into the homeschool connection is the Me and Z family letter. I call it the Z home visit. So it already comes with a letter typed up, but again, you're the master of your ship. You can do it however you'd like. I just use that letter, but then I also include a picture of me and my family and Z to kind of model for parents what they'll do. So I put it all in a bag with a notebook and Z. So Z goes home with the student, and you can do weekends, you can do for a whole week. It's up to you how long Z goes. But the student is going to spend that time with Z in their family. So I've included a picture in my Z home visit of me and my family taking my youngest son and launching him off to college. So that's actually my youngest son, Jesse, in the Telluride shirt, and Z came with us to help Jesse feel happy and confident about leaving his home and moving into a dorm. And then what's really great about that is I didn't know it, but I was building a huge connection with my parents. So many parents have now talked to me about what that's like because they know their kids are going to launch someday too. So I didn't know it, but I was making a huge connection with families just by adding a picture of me and my family. But again, that's actually purposeful and strategic so that you can show parents kind of what they're doing with Z while they have Z, because they're going to talk about the things that they do with Z while they have him. Now, as far as like also building that support with parents at home with Harmony, I just wanted to show you that some of those units kind of reflect directly into something that can be used at home. Because there's problems in every place, every component of our lives. Sometimes we have problems at work, sometimes we have problems within our classroom, sometimes we have problems with our peers or in our homes. And so, for instance, this 4.2 solving problems, it's something that you're going to teach your kids, but it's also something that when you put into the newsletter, it can be used at home. Like when things become a little overwhelming for parents and their kids already know a strategy, stop and calm down. Talk about the other person's perspective. Think about a possible solution and try the solution. That's actually something usable as a parent too within the home. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the music and movement and having fun with the Buddy Time sing-along that you download from the MP3 Professional Learning Library. So what's cool is these Buddy Time sing-alongs, and you already saw how they're used with the units and how they can be really a bonus kind of addition to the units. But they're also, like I said, really well written. The lyrics themselves they are lessons within themselves. So on the Professional Learning Library, you have all the lyrics, you have all the songs you can download, and you can incorporate them in your classroom, when it's good for you. For instance, I said earlier that have a good day, you could start your day with have a good day. You can do Z time when you're going to do a Z time story time, and you can use them when you're doing your buddy up activities. So I thought I would show you how I use the song in a buddy up activity. So here is a buddy time sing along in action in my classroom. I am using the song Better Together in one of our buddy up activities, and I actually have added movement to almost all the songs, so they do kind of already know them. But why I wanted to show this to you is I know I talked earlier a little bit about that skin to skin contact in a meetup and how I really like to do the high fives or the handshakes. But I also wanted to show you how I incorporate it with the songs too, with their buddies.
Thanks, Angela. Let's take a look at the clip.
So what you see is, this is the chorus part of the of the Better Together song, where they hook arms and they go round and round. So they really had to collaborate with each other to learn how to do it. But they so look forward to it. They look forward to hooking arms with their buddies. They look forward to going around. They look forward to those movements. And it really is an enjoyable way to launch a buddy activity. So that was a buddy time sing-along in my classroom. So last, wanted to leave you with that in harmony, there are already motions and chants incorporated in some lessons. For instance, at 5.3, the making amends and forgiving, in that peer relations that I was talking about, how that we have the friendship fix-it shop, how you can teach your kids how to fix those problems when somebody says that you're not my friend, or those friendships fall apart even though they were just made. These are motions that you can use, and the kids actually use with each other once they learn them. I've seen that in action. For instance, this making amends and forgiving says, say your part, you point to your mouth, speak from your heart, and you cover your heart, or you can maybe make a heart, and then you fix what's been broken apart. And so these kids have these kinesthetic movements, and they actually use them with each other to solve problems when there are friendship problems. And so these kinds of activities are sprinkled throughout, these kinds of motions and chants, I should say, are sprinkled throughout the lesson and harmony goals. I mean, the harmony units, lessons and activities. So I wanted to share a little bonus slide, because when I first started doing harmony, I didn't realize the research and relevance within the lessons and activities books were so valuable. So I decided I would call them teacher talk in my mind, because even though it says research and relevance here, and you've got all this research into why the unit is built the way it is and why it's relevant and important, it also has think about this right here and try this today. And that's for every single unit. And why that's so cool, and why I'm stopping to pause and tell you about it, is it's for you. This is teacher talk for your brain. So for instance, looking at 1.3, it's going to put you into that mindset that you're about to teach and ask you a question. What type of people do you tend to befriend at your workplace and in your neighborhood and at social gatherings? So it kind of puts you in that thinking of, well, let me think, well, how does this affect me in my life? So you kind of go into your teaching kind of in the same raw point as your students. They don't know what you're teaching until you teach it. You teach it, you know it already. But if you take that time to reflect and think about this, it kind of gives you a little bit deeper connection with your kids in that unit. And also the try this now gives you verbiage to talk with your kids, and gives you little tips and tricks to keep incorporating that unit within your day and in your interactions. So I'm bringing this up because I skimmed it over, because teachers are busy, and I'm like, yeah, okay, give me the lessons and activities. But once I stopped and looked at the think about this and try this today, I realized how valuable that is. So I thought I would share that with you so that you don't do what I did and just skim past it. So I hope you've taken away some things from these lessons and activities and the meetups and buddy ups. For those of you that are new, I hope you got a nice overview of what the harmony social emotional curriculum kind of is. And now I'm going to open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela. What a fantastic presentation. Yes, if you have questions, now is the time to ask. Please go ahead and put them in your chat box. Remember, Angela is a champion harmony teacher user, so she can answer all those nitty-gritty questions that you've been dying to ask us. So one quick thing I'm going to ask you, Angela, is just a reminder for the handout. Right on the handout, you have the Z storybook characters listed, the unit vocabulary, all the vocab And then the unit lessons and activities. Can you
Mhm.
explain to our audience how they could best utilize the handout leaving this webinar?
So, for instance, the characters, like I said, it's just to get you familiar with who the characters are too, because your students are going to see those faces and they're going to connect with one of them because they're all culturally diverse. So it's good for you to know immediately who it is. For instance, if your student has a question, who's that Jeremy? I mean, who's that? And you already know that that's Jeremy. He's the redhead. It gives you a chance to already kind of be able to flag questions. And like I said, incorporate them easily in your stories. If you're doing a storyboard or you read aloud, you're familiar with those characters. And then the vocabulary, I recommend using it when you've got your plan book open. So you can just kind of jot them in the beginning of your week of what kind of vocabulary you're front loading. So I did that because that's actually what I do. I front load vocabulary for my academics and also for my social emotional. So that gives you just a quick little summation of all the vocabulary for all the units. And then for the lessons and activities, why I gave you each of the lessons and activities is because it's good to know how many you have in the Harmony book. So here is the lessons and activities book, and inside there are 22 lessons. So it's good to know that. So as you're mapping out your year, you can kind of decide, do I want to do once a week? Do I want to do a lessons and activity once a week? Or do I want to start hitting it 2 a week, or maybe even do it 1 every other week? Because if you do once a week, then it's going to take you 22 weeks to get through it. But as you'll see, especially in the unit 2, the empathy and critical thinking, that's a meaty one. So I usually do like 2 lessons a week when I get into that unit because they're valuable. But that way you can decide. You, again, are the master of your ship. You can decide where you put those lessons and activity because I've given you them all right there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angela. Okay, we have a ton of questions coming in, so
Okay.
let's get started. Okay. This is a quick one. So do you buddy up your buddies? Do your buddy up buddies change daily or weekly?
Great question. So on my grid, this is a grid for an entire week. So I show this grid to my students too, so they know in 1 week you're going to get a new buddy and everybody's going to get a chance with everybody. But I do it for a whole week because on your best week, you do a buddy up every day. But being realistic is teachers, sometimes there's a fire drill and you don't buddy up that day. So you don't want to change your buddies every day because you need that flexibility and you want your buddies to have more than just one exchange with each other, right? So your buddy ups I would recommend are for an entire week.
Perfect. Thank you. This next question I can answer, do we have the songs in Spanish? Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have the songs in Spanish. We do have our kits in Spanish in digital form. You can download the quick connection cards, the units, the storybooks. Those are all translated in Spanish. That can be found on our professional learning library. Okay, next question here. Let's see. How many students do you have in your class? There's a couple questions in here. So first, how many students do you have in your class? Is there a number where you should break the students up into small groups due to a big class size? And then, do you have a set time to do buddy up and meet up other than start of the day or circle time? So sorry, that was 3 questions.
No, it's great. Great questions. Time of day. So the first question, my student ratio changes. Last year I had 22. This year I have 23. In years past I've had 24. And I've never had to break them into small groups. And I'm assuming you mean for a meetup. But I will say you'd be surprised at how even a huge meetup circle can work, because I've had my cross grade buddies, which are our 6th grade students on our campus. They meet with us once a week or once every other week. We have done meetups with everybody, and that's what, 50 kids. So it doesn't really look like a circle. It looks more like an amoeba, around the room. But if you're doing something that's quick, it's still super meaningful. So I would say I hesitate to break into small groups. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I am saying you'd be surprised how well it works, again, with a little bit of practice and keeping it brief, using that brevity. As far as the time of day, as you implement your meetup and your buddy up, be gracious with yourself. Okay, you're gonna just have to figure out what time of day works best for you. For instance, I start my day with my meetup, which is a great way to start the day. But on some days, we need to do a meetup after recess again, because we just need to like come back together and talk about our goals. So maybe I'll do it twice in a day. For buddy ups, you've got a lot more flexibility. Like in the beginning of my PowerPoint with the buddy ups, I showed you a picture of something quick. You can use it as a transition. You can just use it if you're all of a sudden have 5 minutes you got to fill. Just pull a card and say, meet up with your buddy and talk about this. Pull a conversation card. Or you can do those buddy ups really strategic, like you saw the one in my classroom where they're actually creating something together and then they're collaborating. So those time frames can vary, and so you're going to decide when you do those buddy ups. You're going to figure out what works best. Maybe it's best in the morning when they're fresh. Maybe it's later in the afternoon after they've, had to solve some problems, with each other. So that's up to you to decide, but I would say keep it up and do it with fidelity as much as you can. That consistency is going to be key. And also be gracious with yourself. It takes practice.
Great, thank you. Another question. So if you are new to this curriculum, where should you start?
That's such a great question. I love that question because that's what I did when I first started. I had all the information. I was like, oh gosh, what do I do with all this? So, I would say a great place to start to just start using it in your classroom is meetups and buddy ups. Just start trying them because you're already doing some kind of circle up, right? So just kind of try out those 4 components. Maybe you're only going to do 3 at first. Just try out the meetups and buddy ups. Meanwhile, you're looking through the lessons and activities. You're breezing through some of the stories just to get yourself a little familiar with them. You don't need to get really familiar with them, but use my little worksheet or my handout to look at Unit 1. So starting with Unit 1, just try the first story and the first lessons and activities. See how that goes for you in your classroom. See where it fits in your day or in your week. And then once you've got that one mastered, move on to the next one and the next one. You can pace yourself better once you start trying it. But I would say try and putting into place in your classroom meetups and buddy ups first, and then start adding those lessons and activities once you feel comfortable. It takes a little while. It took me about a half a year to really start getting it meaty and down in my classroom.
Thank you, Angela. Another question, is sharing in the meetup time for everyone in the group to share something, or is it like, does everyone in the group share, or is it just an individual who shares?
Love your question. So you're sitting in the circle and you've already predetermined the one student that's sharing. Now, what's important about that is, especially in the beginning, everybody's going to want to share. So in my opinion, you should have some kind of visual to show that everybody's going to get a turn to share. It's just not at today's meetup. Because at every meetup, you're going to have one student that shares. What I do is I put a picture of little Z next to a name card, and then I move it the next day. So the students know, oh, that's the person that's going to share at our meetup. And the next day, each meetup I move Z because that person is going to be the one that shares, okay? And the reason that's valuable is when they're this age, they don't get it, that they didn't get a chance to share. And that's going to take, again, a little practice. You're going to be revisiting whatever it is, that visual you use. I have a friend who writes their names on the calendar, literally on each day of the week. Each day of the week, so that all the students can see already where, when their day is to share. Everybody has a different way of doing it. But it's really important to give each student their voice, and having the floor during a meetup is very powerful. So we really all want to focus on that one kid during a meetup, and then the next meetup another and another. I hope that was clear.
Thank you. All right, this next question is about finding the time to implement harmony. Some schools are struggling with implementing it because they have so many other activities that the teachers are trying to manage, and it feels overwhelming. What are some tips, ideas, suggestions you have for getting teachers on board with utilizing harmony, even though you very well know that there's a ton of other activities that they still need to do the rest of the day?
Well, I say the first thing I would say is pull back and look at the big, big picture, okay? There is so much to do in every day, and I feel it. And like I said, when we were talking about buddy ups, I don't always get to a buddy up. Some days we just don't do it. It doesn't happen. There's just a lot in every teacher's day. However, we have these kids for, what is it, 188 days? So we have them an entire year. So if you are trying to incorporate harmony into your day, but you don't put it into your lesson plans, if you don't make that time in the beginning, it's going to be harder and harder to do as you move forward. But here's why the reverse is better. If you're planning your day or your week or your month, or what I do is I also map out my year, I'm placing in those harmony meetups, buddy ups, and lessons and activities strategically within my week. So I do make time for them, because once you get to like Q2 or halfway through the year-ish, they become so seamless and they become so much quicker. And not only that, like I said earlier, it translates into your academics. Those collaboration activities you're doing, those partner works you're doing, and more importantly, all the behavior management you're doing becomes seamless. The kids start solving their own problems, so you spend way less time later putting out any fires or dealing with behavior problems, because they're putting themselves out. They're working as a team, the kids are solving problems, and you get in actually more teaching time later. And I'm only saying this because I've seen it happen in my own classroom, and I've seen it happen in colleagues' classrooms. The difference between incorporating harmony and not incorporating harmony is getting to more academic content. It doesn't seem like it at first, but you have to trust the process. You have to make the time, because the payout later is huge. Your academic content will increase in your classroom as the year progresses. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. Great suggestions for our audience. So we have about 3 minutes left, and unfortunately we won't have time to get to everyone's questions, but I'm going to try to make time for 2 more. If we can get if we can get through them quickly, we'll make time for 2 more. So next question is, do you ever jump around in the curriculum, or do you feel like it has to go straight through the units, like 1 through 5?
I love that question, because I thought the same thing, but realized in hindsight, you really should go in order. It's put in that sequence for a reason. You get your best bang for the buck to do it that way. And here's another reason why. When you're done teaching all the units, you can then go back and reteach something that your class may need some reminders in. For instance, the friendship fix-it lesson and activity. They may need some reminders about how to solve those friendship problems, or an empathy lesson. But once you've taught them all, then you can go back, I would say. They really should be done in chronological order. I would say that is going to give you your biggest bang for your buck later.
Awesome, thank you. Next question is, so our school program is K through 5. Any recommendations on how to best utilize Stanford Harmony with such a wide age range? We only have 2 teachers with 28 children, K5.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about Harmony is we've got the pre-K lessons and activities. We've got the first and second toolkit lessons and activities. We've got a 3rd grade, and we've got a 4th grade, and then a 5th and 6th. So you actually have units for all your grades. So if you, I mean, it's something that you'll have to do a little more work in, going into the professional learning library and finding those lessons and activities for those grade levels, but you'll see specific lessons for each and every one of those grade levels. So there's actually plenty, like the 3rd grade lessons and activities is something we use at our school site for all of our staff meetings. So those are actually really workable, grade-wise, developmentally wise, for all those age groups.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, and I lied, we'll get one more question in,
Okay.
and then we really do have to close it. So How do you suggest we implement Buddy Up and Meet Up if we only see the classes every other week, or is it more for classroom teachers?
Even if it's only every other week, I would say still implement it. Because you can, like I said, make them short or long. So maybe in your classroom, you do your buddy ups just quickly. Because you know you don't have a lot of choice. You just have to be doing the brief buddy ups. But I would say don't skip over it. Still do your buddy ups, even though it's every other week. You can still make it happen.
Awesome, thank you. Angela, let's move us to the next and last slide. Just want to
Okay.
thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Angela, for a fantastic presentation. Again, we had so many questions, so much engagement. We're just so grateful and appreciative that you could be here with us today. So there's my information, rscavito@nu.edu. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Just a quick reminder, when this webinar closes, there's going to be a survey that's going to launch automatically. If you would take, it's very, very short. If you would take just a minute out of your time to fill it out, it'd be wonderful. It helps us provide you fantastic webinars like this one for the future. Angela, do you want any last words for our audience?
Yes, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. Again, it shows your passion for our youngest learners. My passion for our youngest learners is huge because I really feel like we're imprinting on the future by building up our students, and Harmony is a great way to do it. So thank you for letting me share Harmony with you. And I'm so open to help in any way. So if you want if you have more questions or you want to contact me, I'm open, and I wish you the best, and I want you to enjoy and have fun, and you know, let's help make the world a better place, one classroom and one kiddo at a time.
Awesome, thank you. Just a quick reminder, last reminder, this webinar has been recorded. You will receive the recording, you will receive the handout, and we'll make sure that Angela's email is there so you can contact her directly with your other wonderful questions.
Awesome.
And with that, please stay tuned for our next webinar. It's going to be in September 13th with Doug Fisher. It's going to be another fantastic webinar, so please stay tuned for that. Registration should be open shortly. And with that, again, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Take care.